Welcome to the March DFW Austin San Antonio Greater Texas Tug. We are super excited for another great meeting today, and we are happy that each one of you all are taking some time out of your day to join us today. My name is Rachel Mason, and I'm with Technion Data Solutions, who, along with Zeomatrix, helped sponsor this tug. And I have the privilege once again of being your host today. So happy to be here. A special shout out to the Austin Tug Group and the Greater Texas Tug Advisory Council for planning and helping put together today's meeting. It would not be possible without you guys. And like we usually do, I'd love to see where everyone is tuning in from. So if you could just take a moment to throw up your city, state, even country in the chat. We'd love to see where everyone is coming from. Lots of Texans. New Zealand, that's awesome. Got some Seattle. Love to see it. Awesome, lots of Texans today. Lots of Texas pride. Well, I am tuning in from Dallas, Texas myself. So as you guys can see, while you continue to fill out the chat, we are using Zoom meeting today for this tug. So feel free to turn your cameras on so we can see your beautiful face. And I encourage you to continue to utilize the chat to connect with fellow Tableau users. And we are recording today's meeting, and the recording will be emailed out to you following the meeting. And I have received a few comments about not receiving last month's link to the recording. So I will look into that after this meeting. And in the meantime, I will share the link in the chat. So during the meeting, I'll find that and send it. And going through our agenda real quick on the screen here, you can see there's a QR code that is for our after tug survey. So if you want to go ahead and scan that and then fill out the survey after this meeting, we appreciate any feedback on how we can make this experience, these tugs, better fit what your interests and needs are. So feel free to fill that out after the tug. And for today's meeting, we have two awesome speakers. We have Gigi, Zanolli, and Elliot, Stam joining us. Gigi will be presenting on some data dev magic, and Elliot will be walking through metadata APIs. And we have some fun activities today. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Gigi. So Gigi enables hashtag data devs to be successful in using Tableau's APIs and developer tools. She organizes and hosts events and creates content for developers. And before joining the data dev team, she helps customers from all around EMEA to their Tableau adoption. So thank you for being here today, Gigi, and I'm going to stop screen sharing so that you can start.
Thank you again for having me. I'm going to share my screen. I'm cleaning this screen, and I'm going to just put the presentation up. Perfect. You should be able to see my PowerPoint presentation and hear me well. Perfect.
Yep, looks great.
Awesome. So before we get started, I just want to say thank you for having me and thank you for being here. And you might have to listen to our presentation today. You know why? It's because we have a quiz at the end of the presentation to win some data dev swag. So I want to introduce you to Flex the T-Rex. That's our mascot. And we have a lot of branded swags with Flex the T-Rex. So if you want some swags with Flex the T-Rex and some other fun swag, we're also going to give away this plushie. So just listen to the presentation. We are going to have a quiz at the end of the presentation to win some swag and Flex the T-Rex, our mascot. On that, let's get started. Today, I'm going to talk about how developers help you get it done, the data dev magic. You already saw some demos or some presentation and integrations. You already know that the data dev and people using our developer platform are magicians. They do demos application and you're like, wow, like how did you do that? That's magic? More or less, they are talented people. But today I'm going to show you some of the magic that they are doing. And we are not going to go too much details because you know what? Magicians don't give you the tricks, but I'm going to give you the tools to become a magician at the end if you're interested. Of that, I'm Zanolli. I go by Gigi. I'm a developer advocate at Tableau. My personal mission is to help developers integrate and extend Tableau in various ways using our APIs and developer tools. So as a new Tableau user, you might be already familiar with all our suite of products, from Tableau Public to Tableau Server to Tableau Prep. And you might also be familiar with all the different things that you can do with these tools, from running a prep flow, building a dashboard. I'm always amazed by your creativity, how much you can do with dashboards and Tableau tools. But you might not be familiar with the data dev or what we built with using the APIs and tools, or just not familiar with this suite of APIs. You're like, a connector SDK, why is it a taco when you have a connector SDK, extension API? It looks like it extends something, but I'm not familiar with these APIs as normal. And we are not here today to go to too much details on what are these APIs, but more about what you can do and how you can use them and give you the tools in the future to get started using them. So on that slide is just a samples of things that you can build using these APIs and developer tools. From receiving Slack notification to ServiceNow notification or integrations with connectors with a database that is not available yet. That's just a sample of what is possible. And today, the presentation is going to be mostly demos of things that data dev built. Not going to be able to show you all the things that they built because we don't have time. I think we will need a week presentation for me to go through all the integration and all the applications they built. So before we look at the demos, we took all our APIs and categorized these APIs in 5 different buckets, 5 different categories, depending on the use cases that developer used it or end users use them for. The first category for our APIs is automation and integrations. Every time you want to automate and integrate tedious tasks or manage Tableau content on Tableau Server or Tableau Online, user, workbook, data sources. Extensibility, when you want to extend the power of Tableau. Just think that only the sky is your limit when you work with Extension API. You can do so much with this set of APIs. Advanced analytics, when you want to integrate Tableau with advanced models such as R or Python. Then embedding is when Tableau is not your main application, but you still want to bring the power of Tableau inside your application. I forgot that you had like some fancy animation there. And last, data connectivity, when you want to connect to non-native data sources in Tableau. I hope it makes sense, but let's have a look at some demos. I'm going to jump to my workbook. And I'm going to move that bar as well, so we don't need that. So I built this dashboard before this user group. And now we are all working from home. We are all remote, most of us. And we used to be in an open space before. And when you were working on a workbook and you were done with this workbook, you were just able to turn around to your coworker and say, hey, I built this awesome dashboards. Can you check it? What do you think of it? And you don't have really, you can Slack them, but you don't really have this voice that is telling you, oh, you have a new workbook on your server. So let me show what I built to replace my coworker. So I'm going to save this workbook. I say in finance, new dashboard. I'm going to save it here. What can you see in my hand? Alexa, can you read my notification?
One new notification from Notify Me. Hey Gigi, a new workbook has been created on your site.
So let me introduce you to Alexa, my new coworker, by telling me when a new workbook has been published on my site. So what I use there for this demo is Workbooks. Workbooks allow other services, other third-party tools such as Alexa to get notified when an event is happening. At the end, it can be Alexa, it can be Microsoft Teams, it can be Slack, it can be your light in your house if it's connected. Imagine having a light turning on every time you have a workbook failing. So that's just an example of how you can use automation and integration in your workflow. Now let's talk about embedding. We say that embedding is when Tableau is not your main application, but your website, your portal is your main application. So you're bringing the power of Tableau inside your portal. So that's an example of a way you can embed Tableau in another application. So what you see here is a Tableau dashboard. Anyone playing chess? So you can actually play, you see, I need to reload. You can play inside of a dashboard and interact. I think now I have to play with this one. So that's using the JavaScript API to embed Tableau inside your web application, and you have a two-way communication. You can see each move I'm making here are actually showing up here. So that's just an example, a fun of example, but let's go to a more serious example. So that's my embedding my portal. I'm showing all my supplier data, and I can actually sign in here because I want to know. I can pick, I'm going to be, what do you think I can give a CEO today of this company? What do you think? So I keep that. So that's a fake portal. So of course, you're not going to share your credential like that. It's a portal for demos that you can actually access it. And if you're interested, I can follow up and put the link there. I'm going to log in. That's a beautiful portal. What is that? Does it look like Tableau? Oh, it really looks like Tableau. I can interact, I recognize the tooltips, but nothing else is telling me that's Tableau. So that's Tableau running inside of my portal. So I can have here, I can see that's a Tableau workbook, I can click there, and I have all the interaction of Tableau, but inside my portal. So that's Tableau. I can filter, I can have double actions. I can filter the data, I can export the data, I can export in images. All of that are actions that are affecting your Tableau dashboard. So that's examples of embedding. Now, let's go to advanced analytics now. Let's go a demo of advanced analytics and how you can integrate Tableau with advanced models in R, Python, and MATLAB. So I'm going to go to Tableau Desktop. So I pull already all the tweets with the hashtag DataDev. So that's our hashtag and that's our community, and is how you can find content online for the developer community. So I have all these tweets here, okay, like it's interesting. It's actually old tweets, but yeah, I found this, okay. I can look at the number of retweets. And I say, when we talk about advanced analytics, we say that you can, when you think about advanced analytics, you really think about extending as well, because you're extending Tableau by integrating it with another example with Python, with R, but you can really integrate it with anything you calculate fields. Here, I'm not going to show Python because you have a lot of different examples with Python. But you see all these tweets are in English. If you notice, English is not my first language. I'm not going to hide it because it's not true. I cannot hide it. It's there and it's obvious. But all these tweets are in English, and I have a lot of friends and coworkers, but I'm based in France, and the English, and you know, it's like sometimes you feel like, oh, I wish that I had the same data, but in French. So I said, yeah, don't worry, I get you. I got you. So what I did, I'm going just to extend and manage analytics manage my analytic extensions. Here I'm using analytic extension API, and I'm connecting to my own server. I created, again, data samples that are available online, so I can give you the link after the talk as well, if you're interested in using it or just doing a deep dive. So what I want is I have my text in English, and I want that text in French. So I don't want to go inside and translate all the tweets. I want to have a service in the middle that is actually going to translate the tweets. So what I'm going to do is sending from Tableau to the service that is going to translate the tweets and sending back the tweet in my language, French in that case. So here, that's some time for Tableau to send processing the request. I don't think we actually, maybe we needed it. We'll see later. Let's just put back the tweet here and back here. No, I want this one, the tweet here. Okay, well, now. So now I'm going to, let me open it in there. I'm going to edit. I already have a calculate field, but let me just zoom in here. I'm just going to say, I want to use, forgot how to zoom in on the calculate field when you are on Mac. Oh, found it. So I have, doesn't really work well. I should like look at my shortcuts. I have this formula, this function, where I can pass a script. Yes, now I'm just going to say translate, because that's what my script is expecting. But I'm passing tweets. So here you see it's the same, like I can drag and drop it here as an attribute, because I want to send them the tweet in English. As specified, I want English, that's the tweets are in English, and I'm going to translate it to French. Okay. So now I'm sending the data. That was the tricky part. Let me just check something while we're here. So that's just the service that I'm using, and I'm going to post the link as well. So you can have a look at how it works, and you have all the different instructions on how to use it. So it's on, so it should work. You know, it's not a demo if you don't have a glitch somewhere. Yes, so she's working. Okay, let's just check. Yes, let's drag and drop the tweet here. Oh, now it works. You can see. Do we have any French people on the call? No, I see. So you have to trust me. But let's do something else. Let's create a parameter actually, and say, pick your language. I'm going to say I want a string and I want a list. So give me a language. French. The value actually is the opposite. So I'm going to French. Let me see if I have any languages in the chat.
German.
Sorry?
German.
German? Okay, let's do German. I think that's the abbreviation, but let's see. German, no. My work. Okay. While we there are, let's go back there. I'm just going to check at the same time if we have the right symbol. The symbol are here. Let's have a look at which symbol we are using. If it's the right one. German. No, you see, that's the right symbol to use. I edit that. That's interesting. We can come back to this one later. It doesn't seem to answer to anything I'm doing.
I think the value for German is DE.
DE, yeah, but I cannot click on the window for some reason. So let me just close Tableau Desktop and open it again.
That window that's right behind the.
Yeah, the window behind cancel.
Right behind the.
Ah, thank you.
There you go.
That's a good one. Thank you. So now we can go back and edit and just zoom. Okay, now we should have it.
I think the value is still German.
Oh, thank you. I was just being sure that you are following with me. So German is here, and here is the symbol. I don't know what's wrong with Tableau today with me. Okay, that should be working now. So now let's go to the translated tweets. And instead of having French hard-coded, we are just going to add pick your language here. And of course, you need the plus. And is it going to do that again to me? That's the suspense. But it wasn't lying. When you do a demo, you need to restart your laptop before doing the demo. And be sure that, see if it applied. It actually applied. So let's see if we switch it to German. Now it's sending the data, and that's a good thing because we want them to send the data to the servers and send us back in German. So at the same time, let's look at some questions. I saw who maintained the API English. So the API is not English. The link I'm going to post it there is actually a sample code, so you can really play around with it. My team is supporting it and updating it. So if you have any issue, you can reach out to me or someone in my team, and we have all the samples. But the API is officially supported by Tableau. We have documentation as well available out there. So on that, let's go back. Let's cancel that and go back to that. To extensibility. I'm going to close Tableau because I think is not having it today. And we start it again. Okay, and let's just quit. Don't save, we can go back here to it. So now let's talk about extensibility. We will come back to advanced analytics and visualization later on if we have time. But let's talk about extensibility and how you can extend the power of Tableau and the dashboards that you are using. So what I'm showing here is the extension gallery where you can find free extension built and maintained by our partners. And I found this really cool extension on the gallery. It's called Modelo. And it's actually creating 3D models of new data. So here I have all my data for all the different items I have in my house. And you're going to see my house in a minute. And they all have a price associated to each items. But you know, I have all these different items and I know actually what they look like and where they are in the house. So for example, this dining table is really expensive. Where did I put it? Is it in the living room? I actually wonder, and what it looks like, maybe I couldn't sell it. Let me click on that. Oh, that's here, okay, that's the table. And where is the sofa? The sofa is here. Really what you can see on the left is a Tableau dashboard. A Tableau visualizations is a bar chart that I'm sure you all built in Tableau. And that on the right is an extension running. So here you can interact And you have this two-way communication between your dashboard to the extension. And you can also, if you want, interact with the extension, and it's going to update the visualization as well. So you can zoom as well. That's really a web application running inside your dashboard. Another demo I wanted to show you, and let's see if Tableau is going to be happy with me today again, is that do we have any Mario fan in the room? Anyone that play Mario Kart, Mario, Super Mario? If you know, yesterday was March 10th, and is the annual day to celebrate Mario. So I thought it was a good idea to show you how I spend my free time in Tableau. So that's a Tableau dashboard with an extension running, and you can play Mario in it. It's a little bit loud, but that's an example. Oh, I think I'm dying. No, I think it's my best score so far. I'm going to close it because it's really noisy. But that's an example of another extension working inside the dashboard, where you can actually say to your boss, I'm working, I'm in Tableau, I'm building, I'm working with Mario. So that's just a quick and funny examples. I try to put a serious one and a more fun one. And if you want, this extension is available, and you can play with your Mario inside Tableau. And that's for extensions. The only other thing I wanted to show you, and I'm going to go back to Tableau, is everything around connectivity. Every time you don't find the connector that you are using or your data source, what are the options for you? So here is another example. I'm connecting, I want to get access to Elasticsearch. I'm looking for Elasticsearch in my list of native connector, and I don't find it. So I'm going to close it. And again, I went back to the extension gallery, but this time I went to connector. And I actually find Elasticsearch there. I downloaded the file, but I have on my folder, and it's called a taco file. I have it here. And I'm going to go to Tableau repository, to connector, and paste this taco file in my folder. Now, let me open Tableau again. What do you think is going to happen now that I pasted this taco file inside my folder? Oh, that's first open on my other window. Let's see. Now, ta-da! That's magic, no? I have an Elasticsearch connector directly in my native connector pane. So now you can enter all the information. It really looks like any other native connector in Tableau. What I did is I downloaded the taco file, and taco file, it means Tableau connectivity, is where we came up with taco. And this taco file is a connector built on top of our connector SDK. The partner is building it in collaboration and publishing it to the extension gallery, allowing you to connect to non-native data sources just by dragging and dropping a taco file. They package all their work in that file called a taco file. So let me close that and go back to the presentations. So if we recap here, we saw a bit of different categories. We saw automation and integration with my new coworker, Alexa, and how you can integrate Tableau in your workflow. We saw extensibility with Mario, but also with these 3D models, where you can bring 3D models in Tableau. Advanced analytics, we didn't see any R and Python, but I show you how you can call an external API and bring your own advanced models or anything, any data inside Tableau by extending calculation. Then we saw embedding by first playing chess, but after we also saw how to integrate it in a portal. Data connectivity, I show it to you once we went through connecting to Elasticsearch, how dragging and dropping the taco file in my folder, allowing me to connect to a non-native data sources. And taco is the only time you actually want to share a taco with someone else. That's how you can a reminder of what's a taco file. So now you might be, okay, I'm good to go, Gigi. I'm inspired. I want to do more. Or maybe you are not, and that's okay as well. API is not for everyone, but you might have engineers and you're like, I want to do that again. But I don't have the skills and I don't have the interest to go and look at APIs and learn how to use them. So that's where you can also send your developer or software engineers. Both are okay. And if you can also join just to get inspired. That's the Tableau Developer program. So if you have one thing to remember from my presentation, that's joining the developer program at developer.tableau.com. You get a free development site where you can try new APIs, and it's a safe space. If you mess it up, it's okay. It's a safe space. It's your space. You are an admin. And if you make a mistake, you're okay. You're safe. You get early access of API with pre-release version. You get a free, of course it's free, but an engineering connection with the team. They are there to hear you, feedback, issue that you have. We have a Slack channel. You're also invited to events. So we have a monthly sprint demos where we showcase what we have been working on. This is that PM software engineer are showing what's coming next, and you are the first one to know. And you're not only joining a program, you're joining a community of passionate people that are willing to help you, teach you, and show what they are working on. And we don't forget that we like to have fun. You saw it with the demos, and we always have fun learning activities for you to participate. We flex our T-Rex. Also, I'm really excited because we announced it on Monday. We are going to have our first Data Dev Day this year. It's the first ever, I made a typo here, the first ever Tableau conference dedicated for developers. It's one-day event dedicated for anyone that is interested or wants to learn about the Tableau Developer platform. And of course, if you are not a developer, you are welcome to be inspired by what the developer community built. If I didn't convince you still, there was another learning opportunity, talking about fun opportunity to learn. We launched our bingo as well, cards. So that's the same principle of bingo. You have square, but each square is a challenge. They have different levels, different topics. So it can be on embedding, on automation, or on extensibility. You pick your challenge and the level you want to go forward with. On that, there's a lot of talking. If you have any questions, I'm really be happy to take the questions in the chat.
Awesome, Gigi. That presentation was so fun. If you guys have your cameras on, help me give a round of applause for Gigi. And like she said, if you guys have any additional questions, feel free to go off mute or just type them in the chat here. Gigi, I did see one earlier that asked, is it possible to embed Tableau in Google Slides?
That's a good question. I believe yes, it should be possible. I haven't seen it before. Actually, yes, I saw it before. Yes, it's possible. You can find all our documentation, and I'm also going to send Rachel all the documentation for all the different APIs that I talked about, so I can share it with you after, and you can have a look.
That sounds perfect. You're just getting some love in the chat is what I see right now, but no other questions so far.
Thank you. I will stay as well at the end if you have other questions coming up. But thank you all for listening. And on that, I talked about one category, is automation and integrations. And today I am joined with Elliot. Elliot is one of our first data dev ambassadors. So congrats, Elliot, again. And it's been amazing. I got to know Elliot actually through social media because he was posting a lot of blog posts around the REST API. And I was like, oh my God, like your content is great. Like, good job. And I got to know Elliot a little bit more. And I think one question you need to ask Elliot is, how did you get into coding? I think that's an interesting question for Elliot because his answer is actually really interesting how he got into coding. So if we have time at the end, that's maybe something you can talk about. But Elliot is a data scientist based in Amsterdam and is going to talk about one of the API in automation and integration, the Metadata API. Can I tell you more?
All right, thanks, Gigi. Yeah, we'll see if how interesting those questions get. Maybe there's some spoilers that that little expose article last week kind of detailed some of it. But just because I'm a data dev now doesn't mean I always knew my way around Tableau. So if anybody's here watching this who hears the word development and feels intimidated, don't be. Like, I started out with Tableau training, and I was always dreading people asking me like, hey, how do you publish a Tableau server or something? Because honestly, I'd never touched the stuff. I was like, hey, I'm here to teach you Tableau desktop. So you learn it as you go. And now here I am demonstrating one of these APIs. So yeah, the thing I want to do first is start sharing my screen. And I really wanted to set the stage here. Like, we just saw all these demonstrations of all the things that you can do with the APIs and kind of like all these new capabilities that are coming. And I want to take a step back because a lot of my experience comes from being in the consulting trenches where people just really want to make things happen. And one of these newer tools that's come around, it's been available since Tableau 2019.3, so Tableau Server 2019.3, is the Metadata API. And when you hear all this like REST API, Metadata API, what does all that mean? I figure the best way to really get that across to you, especially if you're not really in the development space, is to show you an example of a kind of problem that you might encounter and how, instead of going about solving it manually, you could actually use this metadata API to really do all the heavy lifting for you. So I do have a Tableau online dev site. So this is one of those sites that Gigi plugged earlier. You join the developer program, you'll get this for free. And I've populated this with a bunch of content here. And what we want to do is take a look over here at my users. And I figure since we're in Texas right now, probably one or two of you have seen Tombstone. Anybody remember Doc Holliday? I'm Your Huckleberry. It's a Western movie and everything. And I figured something every team encounters at some point is somebody's not your Huckleberry anymore. They leave the organization. You want to remove them from your site maybe. And something that's going to happen is if we want to remove this guy, let's see, remove user. Turns out Doc Holliday owns some content on our site. And what's going to happen here is he's not actually going to be removed from the site. He's going to get unlicensed and he's going to haunt your site like some unwanted ghost forever until you change the ownership of that content to somebody else. And then you could finally remove Doc Holliday. And so what we're going to take a look at here is how we can use this tool called the metadata API to figure out programmatically what content does any given user own, so that then you could go about maybe automating the process of changing ownership to somebody else and then remove them from the server. Now, this isn't the only thing you could do. This is just an example that's going to help us kind of get to know how you interact with the metadata API and some of the things that could help you do. So first of all, how do you access the metadata API? So one way to do it is to go over here to the side pane. When you're looking at your Tableau online site or on Tableau server, it's going to be the same thing for you. And you can find external assets. And once you go into external assets, you're going to notice this little thing up here in the top right-hand corner. And by the way, I can't see the chat right now. So if anybody's asking questions and they look really good, just feel free to interrupt me and we can address those as we go. But if I click into this, this is going to pull us into this what's called a GraphQL interface. And again, if you're not really a developer, don't be scared. This is just a place where we can write these GraphQL queries, but you don't even need to know what GraphQL is to start making use of this. So like, for example, let's say we just start asking some questions about our workbooks. I could start typing in workbooks, and I'm going to see this autocomplete pop up, and maybe I don't even know what workbooks are. You could come up here to the top right-hand corner where you see this docs, kind of documentation, and you could start searching for workbooks to get an idea of what kind of information could I figure out about workbooks. So I'll click on workbook here, and we'll see that I can get things like the workbook name, this LUID, like LUID, which is, if you work with the REST API at all, this is the ID that you would get for this content using the REST API. And you can figure out some other information about this. So let's see what this actually looks like if I hit run. So you'll notice here, I just typed in workbooks, and then the GraphQL interface just added in this ID thing for me. And it's just because the workbooks itself, it has information that belongs to it, and I didn't populate this with anything, so it just automatically grabbed the default value, which is an ID. But let's see what kind of stuff we could figure out about this. All right, we have a name, and now I run this, and I'm getting all of the workbook names that exist on my site. So maybe nothing groundbreaking yet, but you could go a little bit deeper. You could say, let's find out what project this thing belongs to, and maybe let's find out some information about the owner. Maybe we want the owner's username and the owner's email address. So you could start to really bring together whatever you want to know about content that lives on your server. And so now that we've gotten a kind of a peek at what the metadata API actually is, let's just do a little bit of a recap here. It's really a way for you to get information about what exists on your server. This isn't something that you're going to be querying your databases using. Like, you're not going to find out what your sales numbers are. You're not going to find out how many transactions you had, but it's going to give you information about what's on your server. So if we loop back to this whole conundrum we have here with Doc Holiday, let me reframe this for us. If we want to remove a user from our server automatically, which, by the way, this is a real life project that I've done for a client before. They have like a user syncing process with their domain. And so maybe some user is no longer in the system, and then they have this list every day of a handful of users that they want to remove from their site and new users they want to add to it. Well, you wouldn't want to have to come into the Tableau server interface manually and find all these users and remove them constantly and worry about who am I going to transfer ownership to. So if you want to see this process fully in action, there's also like this YouTube video out here I put up a couple weeks ago called "Successfully Remove Tableau Users Who Are Content Owners." But let's see how we can get this information from the metadata API. We've seen this example of just looking at workbooks. Let's see what else we can pull out of this thing. So the first thing you always want to do when you're using the metadata API is think about, what are you starting with? In this case, we are wanting to remove Doc Holiday from the server, so we might want to start with looking at our Tableau users. That's kind of the root of the problem here, is a user. So we could look at Tableau users, and then every time we want to go a level deeper, like we want to look at attributes of our users, so we do these little curly braces, and now everything that we input here is going to be something about our users. Like, maybe we don't know what we can query at this point, so let's take a look at what all we could get out of our Tableau users. And once again, we can find all this stuff in the documentation. So the problem that was, we couldn't remove Doc Holiday because he owned content. So maybe we want to know what workbooks does this person own. We could do that by looking at owned workbooks. And for our owned workbooks, I'm going to take a look at the workbook name, maybe the project that it belongs to, and let's see how this is shaping up as we go. Okay, now we can see all of the users in their workbooks, but it looks like I didn't get my usernames. So let's make sure we see the username and maybe the email address for all of our users. And now I can see Doc Holliday up here and his owned workbooks. But maybe workbooks isn't the only thing that he owns. Maybe he also owns data sources. So we could get our data sources, the name of the data source and the project name. And let's also take a look at flows. So really there are a few different types of content that you can own. It's going to be workbooks, data sources, and flows. And then there's a fourth one, which is projects. So let's get an idea of all of these things. And we can click run. So one little issue here is I might have multiple users on my server. So if I really only want to know about Doc Holliday, this is where the concept of filtering is going to come in. So something I could do here is where I mentioned that I want information about my users, I could also add a filter. And the filter is just going to be information about my email address. Let's say I want only email address that equals docholliday@gmail.com. Now it looks like none of that matches, but I'm going to bail myself out down here. I wrote this down here. So let's make sure that my filter is correct. Oh, yeah, I used a different email address, not Gmail. Okay, so now I've got all of his content, and I could basically go through and one by one I could remove this. Or if I was building this to use the full power of the APIs, I could basically iterate through all this content, and I could say, for each one of these pieces of content, let me change ownership. So really quickly before I go through and remove this content, I want to ask if there are any questions up to this point.
I don't see any in the chat yet, but keep you posted.
Okay. All right, so then for this purpose, just to move things along here, I want to point out we can go into our users, click on Doc Holliday, and we're going to get a list of all of this content. This is something that's nice. So like, why did we go through all of that with the metadata API? I just wanted to kind of show you the type of information you can get from it. And if you had hundreds of users that you were adding or removing from your server, you would not want to be coming in here and manually doing this. But just for the sake of today and showing that we can remove this user once we've changed ownership to somebody else, let's go ahead and select all of this content that belongs to Doc Holliday, and let's change owner to me. And now if we go back out to users, we can remove this user successfully. All right, so that was a little bit of a warm-up round. Once again, any questions so far? Anybody have no idea what a metadata API is at this point?
We do have one question here. Can you get all the calculated fields on your site?
Yes, yes, you can. So this, it's almost like I planted you in the crowd. So that's one of the next things I wanted to show you. So now that we've gotten some exposure to the metadata API, how you can get information from it, the autocomplete feature it has, you don't really need to know too much about programming to use this thing. Now we get into the really, like, how is this thing going to be the most useful to you? And so we are actually going to see how we can pull calculated fields using the metadata API. But I also want to point out that a lot of teams that I've worked with in the past, they've been concerned with understanding what data comes into Tableau. And so something the metadata API is really good at is showing you, it has this concept of things that are upstream content and things that are downstream content. So for example, if I'm connecting to a workbook and that workbook connects to a data source that's already published to Tableau server, that data source is considered an upstream dependency for that workbook. It's something the workbook connects to. Also, if you're connecting to like a database using a workbook, that's going to be something that the metadata tracks. So let's say, for example, you're about to, like your backend data development team is about to deprecate a table. They're going to get rid of an old database table, and they just want to make sure that it's not going to break anything on Tableau. You could actually use the metadata API to figure out, what is that database connection and what content connects to it. Now, this one isn't a great example for this demo because I don't actually connect any databases here. This is a Tableau online dev site, so it's all just like Excel files and stuff. But that calculated field question is one that's really interesting. So let's see how we can get that, because this idea of having a data dictionary and understanding what formulas exist is more important today than ever before, really. Especially, I'm out here in Amsterdam, and GDPR is something that's really important to companies. And so you might want to be able to filter through all of your calculated fields or all of your fields in a workbook period and see, is any of this information PII? Or maybe you just you're setting up a center of excellence and you want to know what kinds of calculated fields are people writing. So let's see what this looks like. So for starters, let's take a look at our workbooks. And for each workbook, if you want to see your calculated fields, you're going to want to play this little game of Tetris, right? Where you're piecing this together. Like, do I want to go jump from workbooks directly into calculated fields? It doesn't look like that works. But if you think about it, where do calculated fields live? So calculated fields live within data sources. So we're going to maybe want to crack open, like I have a workbook, for example, here that has an embedded data source. Like I published a workbook with an Excel file, and that data source is embedded inside the workbook. So I'm going to look inside embedded data sources to find my calculations. But first, let's get the name of the workbook and the project name. I'm also, just for fun, going to add in the owner, the owner's username, and the owner's email, in case if we stumble upon a calculated field and we want to know more about it, we have information about who to contact to get more information. So let's just keep hitting run as we go. And I mentioned embedded data sources, so I can just start typing that, and it is something that's available for my workbook. So let's take a look at our embedded data sources. Again, I want the name of the data source, and then I can start looking at things like field connections. So I'm going to look at fields. I might even want to know what my folders are. And just off the top of my head, sometimes I forget all of the order of all this stuff. So I did make a query down here that I can reference. And I'm just going to copy this, or actually, let's just get rid of this and let's uncomment this guy down here and just walk through what this metadata API query that I pre-baked is doing. First of all, just like before, where we were filtering on a user, this time, because I'm querying my workbooks, I can filter on a specific project. In this case, I know what project this workbook that has all these calculations I want to show you guys is stored in. So I'm going to filter to that project. We're getting the workbook name. If we wanted to do something with the workbook in the REST API, we're getting this LUID, this local unique identifier, getting the project name. We're getting information about who owns the workbook in case we want to contact them. And then we're peeking under the hood of the embedded data sources. Now, if we want to get the formulas, we first look at our fields. And a piece of information I like to have is the folder name. So if you were to crack open the Tableau workbook, you know which folder that formula belongs into. Or if you're managing a center of excellence, maybe you're trying to instill best practices and you want people to place certain formulas under certain folders, whatever your reasons, you can get to all this information. So let's see what this looks like. And by the way, where you can get the calculated fields is inside embedded data sources. I reference this referenced by calculations object. And then within this, I can figure out what folder that calculation lives in, what the name of the calculation is, default format. So if you applied any kind of number formatting or string formatting to it, and then finally the formula itself. So if we click run, we're going to get all of this information. And this is where things, I think, get really interesting if you're someone who's super practical and you're not really a developer and you don't really like looking at JSON. Nobody would blame you. So something that you can do is you can copy all of these results. I just Command A, Command C. I'm just copying everything that was returned to us. And I'm going to go out to a text editor. I'm going to just save all of this data into a text file. And my goal here is I'm going to connect to this in Tableau. So this thing is the metadata API, and we're taking it even one meta level deeper. We're going to analyze this data that we just pulled with the metadata API, and we're going to make basically like a data dictionary here on the fly using Tableau, just by saving this data. Let's give this a name. I'm going to give it same name as its predecessors, but with a new version. And I'm going to close that. I'm going to connect to data, and I'm just going to point to that file that I just saved. Now in Tableau, you can connect to JSON. That's something that's really convenient, really nice about Tableau. And over here under schema, each level of this schema, each piece of this hierarchy is really just the different levels that we were querying in the metadata API. I'm just going to click on select all. I want all of that information and click OK. And now if we hop into a sheet, I was mentioning this, this is something that's really practical. We queried this data in the metadata API, and now maybe we want to interact with it and make some decisions based off of it. Here's the kind of stuff that you can do. We could take a look at our calculations, and let's get the name of each calculation. And we ultimately want to be able to see the formula. So here we can see I have a lot of these calculations, but what's actually happening inside of them? Let's take the formula and drag that out onto text. And struggling with my Zoom window here. It's invisible to you guys, but it's all up in my way. All right, so now I'm just going to make this stuff a little bit bigger so that we can actually see these formulas. And this is something that if you struggled with this, what you're seeing right here could potentially blow your mind. I mean, I know I've seen teams that were building, believe it or not, people were manually copying and pasting calculations from their data pane. Like they would crack open workbook after workbook manually, open up each calculated field, copy it, paste it into like an Excel spreadsheet. And then this is how they were managing like what formulas existed in Tableau. So this is an enormous time saver if you're in this situation where you need to document the kind of formulas that you're building on Tableau. And keep in mind, we out here in the metadata API, we filtered this to only look at a specific project, but you could query in one go or multiple goes and combine it together, all of the workbooks and all of the formulas that exist on your server. And then you could publish this to Tableau server, and you basically have a way of auditing all of the formulas that you're creating. Now, this gets even more interesting, right? Because we pulled our owner information. Now you could use this as something like a filter. In this case, I'm the only person who owns content on my dev site. But if I had 20 different people, I could filter this by user and see all the different formulas that, Elliot or, Jenny or anybody has been making. And then I can also just add some of this supplemental information into the tooltip. Like, let's say the email address. Let's get rid of everything in here that's not the email address in the formula. And now we're in this situation where we can just scroll through here. And if there's, something that I would want to know about a particular formula, like, oh my God, what was Elliot thinking when he wrote this? I could just shoot out an email. So this is on the fly, just building this. There's some other practical kind of very similar to this applications of extracting metadata API information and putting it into a Tableau workbook is stuff like impact analysis reports. So if you did want to know how many visuals would be impacted if a certain database asset were to go down or were to be taken offline for maintenance, or maybe you're migrating from like, let's say Redshift to Snowflake, and you want to know how many workbooks do you need to go through and replace connections for, this is a prime use case for doing what you're seeing here. We would just go out, we would query all of our content, we would find out what the upstream data sources are, and you could basically drag that into Tableau, and now all of a sudden you have a very interactive space where you can play with that content and get the answers you need. What about
Elliot,
at this point?
We do have a few questions.
Yep.
One of them, instead of copy and pasting to text editor, is it possible to automate the process?
Yes. Who did I plant in the crowd? I want to know. Is this who's my guardian angel here?
This question comes from Addie.
All right. Well, so I did, just in case that kind of question came up, I did throw a little example of how we could do this in a Python notebook, Jupyter notebook. And so let me just walk you through how this looks. I do just want to throw this out there for anybody who's not really, who hasn't used the APIs yet. This is starting to dip into the REST API territory. And your crash course in REST API versus metadata API is that there's, if you imagine a Venn diagram, the metadata API can get information that the REST API can get, but the REST API can do things the metadata API can't, like publishing content and updating content and adding users, removing users. And the metadata API can do things that the REST API can't do in terms of having like that kind of graph type relationship where you can make really dynamic queries. And there is some information that you just can't get through the REST API. So anyways, here we are using a library. This library is called Tableau API Lib, but you could also use Tableau Server Client, or you could go out to the REST API and you could build everything from scratch if you wanted to. But the thing that we're going to do here is we're going to establish a connection to our Tableau online site. And then we are going to send a metadata API query using the REST API. So the REST API authenticates us to the server, and then we are able to just send a query to the metadata API as if we were in this interface, but then it's going to return it to us within this Python environment. So if you were to go out and watch this YouTube video, you'll get an example of me doing this that you could watch over and over again. And it actually, it does this with the also the additional steps of changing ownership using the REST API. So it finds all the content that belongs to a user, changes ownership, and then removes that user. So check that out. But here we're going to do something really, really simple. We're just going to establish a connection to our Tableau online site using Tableau API Lib. Right here, I'm just defining some configuration details. And if you're super quick, you could get in here using my personal access token and delete my entire dev site. So I'm going to just trust all of my friends here if you're not going to do that to me. And then I'll delete this afterwards. But here we're going to connect to Tableau Online site. We're going to sign in. All this library is doing is making use of these endpoints. You can see that there is a sign in endpoint, just like there is a sign in method in this library. And now I'm going to define my really simple metadata API query. We can see that the syntax here, the pattern, is the same type of pattern that we have here, where your queries inside these curly braces. And all I'm doing here is I'm going to grab my workbooks. I'm going to get the name for each workbook and the project name. So I define that query. In this case, this is a multi-line string. Now I'm going to go ahead and run this metadata GraphQL query. So this is a method in the Tableau API lib library. I'm sure Tableau Server Client has something like this implemented as well. You would just have to find what the equivalent is there. But I'm going to run this, and the server's response is going to be stored in this variable. And if I just look at that response, it doesn't look like it's giving me what I want. But that's because when you get these responses from the server, we don't actually want the response itself. The response is kind of a container that's holding a lot of different things. What we actually want to do is access the JSON body of that response. And this is where we're going to get the exact same kind of information. We came out here and we said, give me workbooks. Give me workbooks. I want the name and I want the project name. And we run this. We're going to get this information that's all the exact same as what we see here. Data, workbooks, and then all that information. So we look back out here, data, workbooks, all that information. Now in real life, you probably don't want to go through parsing all this JSON. So one additional step that you would want to do is probably use a library like Pandas. And Pandas is just, if you work with Python and data, you already know Pandas. I don't have to explain it to you, but for anybody, for the uninitiated, it's the best way to work with data in Python, really. Unless you're working with massive, huge data sets. But what we're going to do here is just store this into a Pandas data frame, which is going to give us the ability to have kind of a more traditional table layout. This head function is just giving us the top 5 rows, but we could also run this to get all of that data packaged in this nice Pandas data frame. And that's really it for that kind of how would you automate this. You're able to recap there. You are connecting to the you're authenticating to your server using the REST API, but then you're sending a metadata API query, and you're hitting like the metadata API's endpoints, even though you're using authentication credentials that are kind of being funneled through the REST API. So it's this nice partnership between the two APIs that should make Gigi maybe really happy that we're using all the dev tools, one little box. Any follow-up questions on that?
Let's check here. Just getting some love in the chat. There was a question earlier, though. Let me find it here. Around how to use the GraphQL tool. The question is this integrated in the newer version?
I think my interpretation of that question is just like maybe a different way of asking it is which versions of Tableau Server have it,
maybe
or
so.
Tableau Online. It's available ever since 2019.3. So the newer versions definitely have it. And something I want to point out too, just to be really thorough here, because this is something I ran into early on using the metadata API. I'm hopping into a Tableau server environment here. By the way, shout out to bizstack.io. I think they're in early access right now. So, but keep an eye out. They've basically a hosted Tableau server solution. But I have multiple sites here, and I just wanted to show you something that happens. Let's say I connect to my Devix site, and I go to my metadata querying sandbox, and I query all of my workbooks on the site. we're going to notice here, I see 3 workbooks. I have demo workbook C, B, and A. But if I go back out here and I change my site to DevX temp, I'm going to go ahead and hop back into this GraphQL interface, just refresh, and I'm going to run this again. Here you'll notice that I'm getting a different set of workbooks, and I'm not seeing workbook A, B, and C. So to that, this plays in to that question that just came about automation. And I just wanted to caution you that when you authenticate to a site using the REST API, or when you're authenticated into a site on Tableau server, that is the site for which the metadata API is going to be querying content. So if you want to get like all of the workbooks on your server, like if I don't just want DevX temp, but I want all of the content from all of my sites, then the way that you would go about doing that is either manually change your sites and use the GraphQL interface like we see here, and just pull results from one site, then switch to another site, pull all your results again. Or if you're in Tableau server land, or Python land, and you're automating everything, then you would use the REST API endpoint switch site to programmatically, you'd basically query all of your sites, and then you would know which sites you need to cycle through to, for each of those sites, issue your metadata API query, get the results, and then switch site, do the same thing, switch sites until you've exhausted all of the sites available, if that makes sense.
Awesome. There are a few other questions in the chat, so I will make sure that those are forwarded to you, Elliot. But I think at this time, it might be a good time, Gigi, to do a little activity. I'll let Gigi handle the details of the activity.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm just going to launch. Thank you, Elliot, for the presentation. I'm really glad you put all the APIs together. It's nice to see all the API coming together. So
yes, thank you, Elliot. That was awesome.
Yeah. Feel free to reach out, anybody, if you have questions. You know where to find me.
So let me put the instruction on. I'm going to share my screen. So to get to the quiz, I don't know how to mute the music here. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, I believe we see Slack right now.
Oh. Thank you. Not the right screen. No, you should not be seeing Slack.
There we go. Yep. Good.
Perfect. So now you need to go to Kahoot. I'm sure I pronounced it really wrong.
I'll put the link in there as well.
And get the quiz, the game pin. And that's the pin code.
Yep, so you just go to this link and then you'll type in the game pin, and that will bring you to this specific game where you can participate. And we do have a prize, everyone, so get excited.
Let me get Flex. So who wants to bring Flex home? Yeah, I think you need 6 years old. Flex, do you want to join? I think he's saying yes. Okay, let's wait maybe 1 minute more. Elliot, I don't know if you can play. I see you.
I just want Flex so bad.
I mean, You got a flex already, no? Where is your T-Rex?
I'll just sit and watch the questions. Shame.
Where did you put flex? What did you do with flex?
I don't know if he made it to Amsterdam. Actually, might have been mailed back to the LA address.
Oh,
Got adopted by a loving family, I'm sure.
okay. Who needs more time? More people are joining now, so.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, go.
Nice.
Let's see, toi.
Looks like most people knew that one, so that was good. Really quickly too.
Yeah, like 5 seconds. Let's get to the next one. True or false? Ooh, energy is going up. Let's go to the next one.
I love seeing the answers come in so fast.
Yeah.
It comes in
I
a matter
know.
of seconds.
Let's see. Thor still first. I think this one was an easy one. Oh, energy is going up now. First spot. I think 10 seconds is too much. We need to reduce the number of seconds. You're too quick. Troy is coming back second place. Amy first. Yes. Amy, 6 correct answer in a row. Congrats, Amy. Let's get
Snap
one.
for Amy.
Manu, Alexa, Manu coworker. Yeah. You're quick. But sure, I'm sure I'm pronouncing your name really wrong, but going up. We did more than half. That was a tricky one, Elliot. I didn't put this one on. Be sure is one first, another true false. Ooh, is making a comeback. Cheetah team. I think Flex and Rex are really similar as well. So
it tripped up a lot of people.
So we call it Flex because we, as a developer platform, we are flexible. And it's also why T-Rex does yoga, because we are flexible with our APIs and developer tools. Everyone got this one right. Okay, two more. We still have time to go up. Almost. Last question. So Tacos, Roll, Emily, and Amy, you have the winner for now. Let's see. And the podium. Ooh. Lily. Congrats, everyone.
Awesome. Tacos rule number 1. Who is it?
Chad.
Chad.
Congrats.
Awesome. That was so fun. Well, thank you, Gigi. Thank you, Elliot, especially Elliot, for staying up super late there in Amsterdam. Thank you so much for speaking at our tug today. We hope that you all had fun, learned something new, and leave inspired to go create awesome vizzes and love Tableau. So feel free to stick around a few minutes if you would like to connect with anyone on here. All of the resources mentioned will be emailed out along with a recording shortly after this meeting. But thank you so much for joining today, and we'll see you next month.